Hi, in this video, I want to talk to you about what it's like being a special needs parent. You know, I never thought I'd be a special needs parent, and I didn't know what it would be like. I didn't have a lot of parents to talk to about this. And so if you're someone who is just curious on what it's like, or you're wondering how can I encourage maybe a friend or a family member who has a special needs kid, this video will be helpful. And if you're someone who is a special needs parent and you feel like alone and you just need someone to validate maybe the experience you've gone through, hear a story of pain that maybe resonates with you so you just feel less alone, it would be my absolute honor to provide that for you. You know, special needs is something that's a mixed bag. On one hand, you're just thankful for your kid and you'll love them no matter what. You accept them, but the news that maybe some of the dreams that you originally had for your kid isn't going to match up with your reality can be shocking, surprising, painful, frustration. I've heard it defined like this. Frustration is the gap between expectation and reality. And so we had our first son, Obadiah, and he was just so perfect when he was born. His eyes were alert. He had so much hair. He was so cute. He was so well loved. Everybody thought, man, this baby is so loved and cherished, and we just want to be around him. And he was typically developing his most of his early days, and then we actually moved across the nation from Michigan to Seattle to start a church, and we started to notice some things before he turned 2 years old. Now, he was like typically developing. He spoke 50 words or so. He was able to play some interactive games with me. He was athletic, walking. I mean, he seemed to be ahead of the curve, but then something started to shift. Like, he stopped making eye contact as much. He stopped being able to walk in a straight line, and he just stopped talking almost altogether. His outrage began, and he started being very destructive, and it was just horrible. As he was 2, 3, 4, there was a time where he was just like, he was pooping and smearing it on the walls, and we just didn't know where to place him, and we didn't know how to keep the house clean. My wife and I would clean the house 2 to 3 times, and we try to bring him to experts and special needs facilities, and our son actually got kicked out of 2 special needs facilities, like places designed to help him. And so anyways, this was a rude awakening into a new world. So we started to suspect something was wrong, and we brought him to this place for like speech therapy. We just thought he was a little behind in talking because, you know, my family spoke 2 different languages, English, Tamil, and they said as a young boy I was confused, and that's why I was a late speaker. I wasn't really speaking until I was like 4 or 5 years old. So they brought my parents to a therapist, and they said, hey, if you want your son to speak faster, just speak one language in the house, and then he'll speak. So my parents stopped speaking Tamil. They only spoke English, and suddenly I was able to speak all these words, and I grew really fast in my ability. So I thought when my son was going to lose his words and was losing his words, I thought maybe he's like a late bloomer like me. So we took him to the speech therapist, and just thought, okay, we'll just have to do these therapies. But when they came up to give us the results of their evaluation, they said, hey, we think your kid has special needs and has autism specifically. That was so shocking to us. We did not see it coming, to be honest. And, you know, if you are dealing with a family that is going through the shock, I want to encourage you, number one, don't do what those evaluators did to us, because while we were in our shock, we're trying to just grasp the news. They said, you're so lucky to have a kid with special needs. You're so blessed. Like, God trusts special parents with special children. And I believe all of that now. But in that moment, those words were so insensitive. I hated them. I was so angry. I was like, don't you tell me. It was like if my kid got cancer. That's how it felt. I'm not saying this is like reality, and I'm not trying to like make people feel less than if you have autism or whatever, but it was like my son has a disability that's insured that we're trying to like get therapies for, and to tell me I'm lucky, it just felt insensitive. So tip number one, if you're meeting a family that's going through the shock of a new diagnosis, just like sit with their pain. Don't try to dismiss it or gaslight them into thinking it's not a big deal. It's a big deal. Another thing that happened was like, so we're going through this pain and people are afraid they're going to say the wrong things around us. So surely some people who are close to us just stop hanging out with us, stop inviting us to parties. Now we have a great Christian community, but I'm just saying, like, not necessarily people in the church, but just people outside of it, like, didn't know what to do with us. Like, can we invite them to party? We don't want to be too much. Should we invite you on a vacation? And so, like, in addition to feeling the shock of special needs with their own kid, we suddenly felt so isolated. Like, people don't relate to us. They don't know how to interact with us. So they also don't want to bother us. So they just kind of leave us alone. And that was really sad. It was a lonely experience in the right that I couldn't speak to my own son. Like, I couldn't have inside jokes with him. I didn't know what was going on with his mind. But on top of that isolation, I felt the isolation of some like community, and people didn't want to reach out. They didn't want to say the wrong words. So they just kind of left me alone. And so a lot of special needs families just feel so alone. In fact, at our church, we have a special needs buddy program where parents can have one-on-one buddies for their kids. And like, so many families have said, hey, we haven't been going to church since we got our special needs diagnosis because we just didn't feel like our kid would be accepted and welcomed at our church. But when we heard you share about your story and the fact that you have a buddy program, we felt like seen and less alone, and felt like there was a place that we could worship. And so I was just so thankful for that. It is very a lonely experience. And now I'm not going through all the feelings of special needs, but another thing that I could not accept at first, third thing, is that I became more like Jesus because of my son with special needs. I had to reprioritize my prayers and what the American dream was and what success looked like and what comparison looked like. Because let's be honest, like, we want our kids to do better than other kids, outperform them, want them to be healthier and smarter. And we're so proud when they succeed. And when you're like known for a kid that just can't keep up with these like typical milestones of success, it's like pretty depressing. But, in my like most depressing times where I was bitter at the Lord, where I felt like the Lord wasn't answering my prayers, I could only say this years after, I just started to notice like, oh my goodness, I've placed my hope in the wrong thing. And because of my son and his diagnosis, I've learned how to pray different prayers. Like, Lord, even if it hurts, conform me into the image of your son, Jesus Christ, who died on the cross, who suffered but still followed God, who in the Garden of Gethsemane said, Lord, let your will be done, not my will. And to the point where he sweat blood and prayed very real prayers and was able to on the cross pray, Father, why have you forsaken me? He was taught perfection through obedience. And so in the same way, I feel like I've understood suffering a little bit more. I have learned to lean on the Father. I have leaned into the Beatitudes that say, blessed are the poor. You know, I just feel like, man, I got a revelation of who Jesus is. And if the poor are considered blessed in the kingdom, man, my son is so blessed. Maybe not to the priorities of this temporary American culture, but like in the kingdom of God, an eternal kingdom that will not be shaken, we are blessed. So anyways, becoming a special needs family is very, very, very difficult, but there is beauty that can come on the other side of it. Have you ever had an experience like that? If so, please leave a comment, hit like and subscribe if you want to hear more content like this. But I feel like we need to create a community so people can feel seen, known, and loved. So thank you for the time to listen to me, and pass this on to another parent that might feel a little bit more seen, that they're not alone in their journey. Well, thank you so much. God bless you, and see you next time.